Good morning, students. Welcome to Income Tax class. The name of our subject is Income Tax, Law, Practice and Tax Planning. In this paper, we have to cover computation of income under various heads, and taxable income of various entities, tax planning and procedure of assessment. In our first module, we have to study the basic concepts of income tax, then capital and revenue, tax planning, residence and incidence of tax, then tax planning relating to residence and incidence of tax. Then come to the basic concepts. Tax is a tax charge levied by the government. There are two types of taxes, direct and indirect tax. Direct tax means tax directly paid by the person who is liable to pay tax. Then the government levies tax on the person who is liable to pay the tax. For example, income tax. Income tax is levied on the income of every person. The person who earns income is liable to pay income tax. Then indirect tax. As the name indicates, indirect tax means tax not paid directly by the person who actually pays the tax, but he paid it through intermediaries. For example, GST, then for VAT, sales tax, etc. Then come to income tax. Income tax is a direct tax and charges levied by the government on the income of a person. Then tax is payable by the person who actually earns the income and who is liable to pay tax. In India, every person whose total income for the previous year exceeds the minimum taxable limit is liable to pay income tax to the central government. And tax is payable by the person only if his total income, taxable income, exceeds the minimum taxable limit and is a tax levied by the central government. Then we can see what is the basis of income tax, basis of charge of income tax. Income tax is an annual tax on income, should be paid annually. Second one, previous year's income is assessed in the next following assessment year. Income earned during a particular year is assessed on the next following financial year. For example, current previous year is 2020-21. Current financial year 2020-21. Then the previous year is 2019-20. Income earned during 2019-20 is assessed in the year 2020-21. Then third one, tax rates are fixed by the Annual Finance Act. the rate of tax is fixed in the Annual Finance Act passed in the Parliament. So, the rate of tax of the current year may be different from the rate of tax of the previous year. Then the assessee is liable to pay tax on the assessment year based on the rates applicable to the previous year, because income earned during the previous year is assessed on the assessment year. Then next one, income tax is charged on every person as defined in section 231. Section 231 of the Income Tax Act defines who is person. Then and tax is levied on such persons defined under section 231 of the Income Tax Act. Then next is that income is charged on the total income, and the total income is computed in accordance with the provisions of the Income Tax Act. That means how to compute total income is given. The rules for computing total income is given in the Income Tax Act, and the total income should be computed in accordance with the provisions of the Income Tax Act and not according to any other provisions of any other act, but according to the provisions of the Income Tax Act. Then next one is that tax is to be deducted at source or paid in advance. Then mode of payment then either it used to be deducted at source, that means TDS, either source in the deduct or paid in advance, or assessee paid the tax in advance. It's the basis of charge of income tax. Then total income is computed on the basis of the residential status of the assessee, and the total income is computed under different heads. The heads of income. First one, income from salaries. Then second, income from house property. Third, profits and gains of business or profession. Capital gains, fourth one. Then last, fifth head, income from other sources. Then different steps are involved in the computation of total income and assessment of tax liability. First, I have to classify income under different heads. Then compute income under head wise. Then deductions, carry forward, set off, clubbing, etc. After making all these adjustments, we get the total income or taxable income, and that is tax is computed on the total income of every assessee. Then you can see some important definitions. I am explaining only some important definitions. All these definitions are studied in degree class, so I am here mentioning only some of the important definitions. Then first one, assessment year. Section 2, subsection 9. Assessment year means the period of 12 months commencing on the first day of April every year and ending on 31st March of the next year. Assessment year means current financial year. The assessment year appoyum current financial year item starting from 1st April and ending on 31st March of the next year. Then for our study, current assessment year is 2020-21 1st April 2020 to 31st March 2021 is our assessment year. The next one, previous year. Previous year, section 3. Previous year means the financial year immediately preceding the assessment year. The year or the financial year immediately preceding the assessment year. The period of 12 months are not necessary. Suppose for example, in case of a newly started business concern, the previous year starts from the date of commencement of business and ends on the next 31st March. For example, if a business is started on 1st June 2019, then its previous year is 1st June to 31st March 2020. Then that is the importance of previous year. The income earned during the previous year is assessed on the assessment year. The current previous year or relevant previous year is 2019-20 and income earned 2019-20 is assessed on 2020-21. Our current previous assessment year is 2020-21 and the relevant previous year is 2019-20. The next definition, person. Section 231, as per section 231, person includes an individual, a Hindu undivided family, a company, a firm, an association of person or body of individuals, whether incorporated or not, a local authority, then every artificial juridical person not falling within any of the preceding subclauses or any of the names mentioned above. All these individuals and institutions are denoted by the term person. The next, assessee, section 2, subsection 7. An assessee means a person who is liable to pay any tax or any other sum of money. Any other sum of money, example, interest, penalty, etc. under the provisions of the Act. That is, an assessee means a person who is liable to pay any tax. Who is liable to pay tax is an assessee. Then it also includes a person who is liable to pay tax or any other sum of money. Any other sum of money includes interest, penalty. For late payment, interest is charged, or for making any default, penalty is levied. Then such persons are also denoted by the term assessee. Then next is that the term assessee includes deemed assessee and assessee in default. And who is a deemed assessee? Deemed assessee means a person who is deemed to be an assessee for some other person. For example, a person is liable to pay tax not only for his income, his own income, but for the income of other person. For example, legal representative of a deceased assessee or guardian of a minor. The legal representative of a deceased assessee is liable to pay tax on the income earned by the deceased assessee. Likewise, the minor's income is taxable in the hands of guardian and guardian is liable to pay tax on minor's income. Then in this case, They are not paying tax on their income, but the income of some other. The next, assessee in default. Assessee in default means when a person is responsible for doing any work under the Income Tax Act and he fails to do it, he is called an assessee in default. For example, when salary disbursing officer or an employer is entrusted to deduct tax on salary while disbursing salary, and if he fails to deduct such amount on disbursing salary, he is treated as an assessee in default. Or if he actually deduct the salary but fails to remit in it government treasury, he is also termed as an assessee in default. അതായത് യഥാർത്ഥത്തിൽ ചെയ്യേണ്ട ഡ്യൂട്ടി ചെയ്യാത്ത ആളെ ഇൻകം ടാക്സ് റൂൾസ് പ്രകാരം എൻട്രസ്റ്റ് ചെയ്ത ഡ്യൂട്ടി അത് ചെയ്യാതിരിക്കുന്ന ആളെ, അതിൽ വീഴ്ച വരുത്തുന്ന ആളെയാണ് assessee in default എന്ന് പറയുക. The next one, gross total income. Gross total income, section 80B, subsection 5. Gross total income means the total income in accordance with the provisions of the Income Tax Act before making any deductions under section 80C to 80U. Total income means, gross total income means the total income computed in accordance with the provisions of the Income Tax Act. As per the provisions of the Income Tax Act, income must be computed on headwise. Then if there is any aggregation, clubbing, carry forward or set off, after making all these adjustments, the total income, the aggregate of such income is known as gross total income. Aggregate of headwise income after making adjustments for carry forward, set off, clubbing, aggregation, etc. The next, total income. Total income, section 2, subsection 45. Total income means the amount left after making the deductions under section 80C to 80U from the gross total income. Then under section 80, there are some deductions allowed by the government from our gross total income. And gross total income, first we have to compute gross total income, then deduct all the deductible amounts as per section 80C to 80U, we get total income. So gross total income minus deductions under section 80C to 80U gives total income, and the tax is levied or charged computed on this total income. Then next topic, residential status and tax incidence. The taxable income of an assessee is computed on the basis of his residential status. Residential status is different from citizenship. Tax incidence on an assessee depends on his residential status rather than his or her citizenship. That means citizenship is not the basis for computation of tax, It is the residential status which determines an income is taxable, whether an income is taxable or not taxable. Then the determination of the residential status of a person is very significant in order to find out the tax liability. That means an income is taxable or not taxable depends upon the residential status. Then we can see how the residential status of an individual assessee is determined. The residential status of an individual assessee may be resident or non-resident. Then individual assessees are grouped as resident assessee or non-resident assessee. Then resident assessee again divided into resident and ordinarily resident, then resident but not ordinarily resident. But there are three types of residential status for individual assessees. That means resident and ordinarily resident, then not ordinarily resident and non-resident. And the residential status is determined on the basis of satisfaction of certain conditions. Certain conditions are given in the rules, and the satisfaction of these conditions provide the basis for determination of residential status. Then there are two such conditions. First one, basic conditions, and second, additional conditions. First, about basic conditions. The basic conditions are: first, he is in India in the previous year for a period of 182 days or more. The assessee is in India in the previous year. In the previous year means our relevant previous year is 2019-20, and a person is in India, an individual is in India during 2019-20 for a period of 182 days or more. This is the first basic condition. Or second one, he is in India for 60 days during the previous year, and he has been in India for at least 365 days in 4 previous years preceding the relevant previous year. That means the individual assessee is in India for 60 days during 2019-20, for at least 60 days in 2019-20, and he has been in India for 4 previous years. Has been in India in 4 previous years preceding the relevant previous year. That means 2019-20 മുമ്പുള്ള 4 previous years. അതായത് 18-19, 17-18, 16-17, 15-16. ഈ 4 previous yearലും കൂടി at the total stay 365 days or more. ഇതാണ് second basic condition. അതായത് during the previous year, that is 2019-20, at least 60 days and 365 days during the 4 preceding previous years. That is the second basic condition. But for the second basic condition, there is some exceptions. For example, in case an Indian citizen leaving India as a member of crew of an Indian ship or for the purpose of employment outside India, or Indian citizen or person of Indian origin come on a visit to India. In these two cases, the 60 days stay in India should be at least 182 days in the relevant previous year. അതായത് ഈ പറഞ്ഞ രണ്ട് കേസിലും സെക്കൻഡ് ബേസിക് കണ്ടീഷനിൽ പറഞ്ഞിരിക്കുന്ന ഹീ ഈസ് ഇൻ ഇന്ത്യ ഫോർ 60 days എന്നുള്ളതിന് പകരം 182 days തന്നെയാണ്. കേസസ് ഒന്നുകൂടി ഞാൻ പറയാം. ഇന്ത്യൻ സിറ്റിസൺ, ഇന്ത്യൻ ഷിപ്പിൽ ക്രൂ ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു ക്രൂവിലെ മെമ്പർ ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു ഇന്ത്യൻ സിറ്റിസണോ then അല്ലെങ്കിൽ എ സിറ്റിസൺ ഫോർ ദ പർപ്പസ് ഓഫ് എംപ്ലോയ്മെന്റ് ഔട്ട്സൈഡ് ഇന്ത്യ, അത് ഇന്ത്യക്ക് പുറത്ത് ജോലി ചെയ്യുന്ന ഒരു ഇന്ത്യൻ സിറ്റിസണോ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഇന്ത്യൻ ഒറിജിൻ ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു ഇന്ത്യൻ സിറ്റിസൺ, ഫോറിൻ നാഷണൽ ആയിരിക്കും, അയാൾ ഇന്ത്യൻ ഒറിജിൻ ആയിരിക്കും, കംസ് ടു വിസിറ്റ് ഇന്ത്യ, അയാളുടെ റിലേറ്റീവ്സിനൊക്കെ കാണാൻ ഇന്ത്യയിലേക്ക് വന്നതാണെങ്കിൽ പീരീഡ് ഓഫ് സ്റ്റേ 60 days അല്ല, അവരുടെ കേസിൽ 182 days ആണ് പീരീഡ് ഓഫ് സ്റ്റേ. ദീസ് ആർ ദ ടു ബേസിക് കണ്ടീഷൻസ് for determination of residential status of an individual assessee. Then we can see who is a resident and who is a non-resident. Resident or non-resident is determined on the basis of the satisfaction of basic conditions. We consider the satisfaction of basic condition to determine whether an assessee is a resident or non-resident. Then individual is said to be a resident in India in any previous year if he satisfies any one of the basic condition. And if he satisfied any one of the basic condition, he is treated as a resident. അപ്പോൾ അയാൾ ഏതെങ്കിലും 1 or 2, അവിടെ ഞാൻ ഓർന്ന് വെച്ചിട്ടുണ്ട്, 1 അല്ലെങ്കിൽ 2, അപ്പോൾ ഏതെങ്കിലും ഒരു കണ്ടീഷൻ ഫുൾഫിൽ ചെയ്താൽ അയാൾ റെസിഡൻ്റ് ആണ് ഫോർ ദ പ്രീവിയസ് ഇയർ. അതായത് റെസിഡൻഷ്യൽ സ്റ്റാറ്റസ് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് സ്ഥിരമായിട്ട് നിൽക്കുന്നതല്ല, ചേഞ്ചസ് ഫ്രം പ്രീവിയസ് ഇയർ ടു പ്രീവിയസ് ഇയർ. നിങ്ങൾക്കറിയാം, ഡിപ്പെൻഡിങ് അപ്പോൺ ദ നമ്പർ ഓഫ് ഡേയ്സ് സ്റ്റേ ഡ്യൂറിങ് ദാറ്റ് പ്രീവിയസ് ഇയർ. അതായത് ഓരോ പ്രീവിയസ് ഇയറിലും താമസിക്കുന്ന ദിവസത്തിൻ്റെ നമ്പറിനനുസരിച്ച് റെസിഡൻഷ്യൽ സ്റ്റാറ്റസ് മാറും. അപ്പോൾ 2018-19 സ്റ്റാറ്റസ് ആയിക്കൊള്ളുന്നില്ല, 2019-20 ഓരോ ഇയറിലും ഓരോ പ്രീവിയസ് ഇയറിലും റെസിഡൻഷ്യൽ സ്റ്റാറ്റസ് ചേഞ്ച് ചെയ്യും. ദെൻ നെക്സ്റ്റ് അബൌട്ട് നോൺ റെസിഡൻറ്റ്. If an individual does not satisfy any of the basic condition, അതായത് none of the conditions satisfied, അതായത് ഒരു ബേസിക് കണ്ടീഷനും സാറ്റിസ്ഫൈ ചെയ്യുന്നില്ല എങ്കിൽ is a non-resident for the relevant previous year. A resident individual is again classified into resident and ordinarily resident and not ordinarily resident based on the satisfaction of additional conditions. There are 2 additional conditions, and these additional conditions are for determining a resident, whether a resident assessee is an ordinary resident or not an ordinary resident. Then additional condition, first one, he has been a resident in India. He has been a resident in India for at least 2 out of 10 previous years preceding the relevant previous year. The individual assessee has been a resident in India for at least 2 out of 10 previous years preceding the relevant previous year. That means 2000, in our case 2019-20 is our relevant previous year, and preceding to this to relevant previous year 2019-20, then take 10 previous years and find out the individual, whether the individual is as an resident or non-resident. He has been a resident for at least 2 out of 10 previous years ആണ്. ഇത് ഈ 10 വർഷങ്ങളിൽ ഏതെങ്കിലും 2 വർഷം മാത്രം അയാൾ റെസിഡൻ്റ് ആയിരിക്കണം. For resident, he must stay in India for 182 days or he must satisfy first or second basic condition. Then, and he has been in India for 730 days or more during 7 previous years immediately preceding the relevant previous year. അതായത് relevant previous year 2019-20 അതിനു മുമ്പുള്ള 7 വർഷങ്ങളോട് ടോട്ടൽ സ്റ്റേ 730 ഡേയ്സോ അതിലോ കൂടുന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ then these basic condition പറഞ്ഞു first and second ആണ്. And satisfaction of both the additional conditions are necessary. Then we can see who is an ordinarily resident and who is a not ordinarily resident. Then if an resident individual, that means if he satisfies any one of the basic condition and he also satisfies both the additional conditions, he is an ordinarily resident for that previous year. അതായത് ഏതെങ്കിലും ഒരു ബേസിക് കണ്ടീഷനും രണ്ട് അഡീഷണൽ കണ്ടീഷനും ഫുൾഫിൽ ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ അയാൾ ഓർഡിനറിലി റെസിഡന്റ് ആണ്. Then if an individual satisfies any one of the basic condition and he does not satisfy one or both the additional conditions, he is a not ordinary resident for the relevant for the previous year. അതായത് അയാൾ ഒരു ബേസിക് കണ്ടീഷൻ ഫുൾഫിൽ ചെയ്തു, ഈസ് റെസിഡന്റ് ആണ്, ബട്ട് ഹി ഡസ് നോട്ട് സാറ്റിസ്ഫൈ വൺ ഓർ ടു അഡീഷണൽ കണ്ടീഷൻസ്, അതായത് ഒന്നോ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ രണ്ട് അഡീഷണൽ കണ്ടീഷനോ ഫുൾഫിൽ ചെയ്തില്ലെങ്കിലും അയാളുടെ സ്റ്റാറ്റസ് നോട്ട് ഓർഡിനറിലി റെസിഡന്റ് ആണ്. In this session, I explained the basic terms, important definitions and the determination of residential status of individual assessees. Hope you understand all these terms. Then residential, how to determine the residential status of other persons. Then that will be discussed in the next session. Thank you.